Good evening. We want to welcome you to our May the 20th Pitt County Board of Commissioners meeting. We want to welcome all of you who are in our audience. I see a lot of Cub Scouts and a lot of Eagle Scouts, and we want to welcome you guys, and glad you're here with us. We also would like to welcome those who are viewing us by way of television. I call this meeting to order, and we shall now have our roll call. We will now have our invocation and our pledge. Commissioner Hammond is going to do the invocation, and Commissioner Webb will do the pledge. Let's all stand, please.
Let us pray. Our Father and our God, we come and thank Thee for this day and for the many blessings of life, and we pray that Thou wouldest guide us through this meeting tonight, that all that is accomplished might be for the betterment of the people of this county. Please forgive us for our transgressions and our sins, and bless us collectively and individually. In your holy name we pray, amen.
Amen. Let's face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have a motion that we approve our agenda.
So
motion, second. Let's vote.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
Could we possibly move the presentations up, keep the same order of the three prior to the public hearings?
Yes.
Would that be all right?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
you okay with that, your motion and your second? Okay, let's vote. Very good. We shall now move into our presentations. We have three presentations, one resolution honoring Charles Coburn. We have the recognition of our Eagle Scouts and also recognition of our Cub Scouts. Do I have a motion that we approve all three of those?
Second.
Okay, let's vote. Thank you, and the manager and I will go down and present those presentations.
The first presentation tonight is a resolution honoring Charles Coburn, and if he will come forward with any family members or anybody he has with him. The board has prepared a resolution, and Mr. Chairman, if you'd like me to read this, I will proceed. Pitt County Board of Commissioners, Greenville, North Carolina, resolution honoring Charles R. Coburn. Whereas Mr. Coburn was born March 8, 1947 in Pitt County and called to his eternal home on February 21st, 2013 at the age of 65. And whereas Mr. Coburn attended Pitt County schools, graduated from Belvoir Falkland High School in 1965, lettering in baseball and basketball while in high school. Whereas Mr. Coburn entered the U.S. Navy and was severely injured while serving in Vietnam. He was awarded the Purple Heart among many medals. Whereas Mr. Coburn entered Pitt Technical Institute in the fall of 1970 and later received an associate's degree in business administration in 1973. He played basketball at Pitt Technical Institute from 1971 to 73 under Coach Bob Turner. Coach Turner resigned in 1973. Mr. Coburn took the coaching position from 1973 and 75. And whereas after the 1975 season, Mr. Coburn resigned and moved to Texas. He played semi-pro baseball from 1970 to 1975, with his first stint with the Jolly Giants from 1970 to 73. Mr. Coburn coached Little League in Falkland from 1970 to 71 and in Greenville from 72 to 75. His second semi-pro stint was as a player/manager with the Farmville Brewers in 1973 and 75. Whereas Mr. Coburn later returned to North Carolina in 1982, where he was hired as the Pitt Community College basketball coach and athletic director, where he coached for 14 seasons until his retirement in 1994. Whereas Mr. Coburn worked 37 state tournaments, 17 regionals, and 3 World Series as an umpire, and was a 5-time recipient of the Pitt County Association's Umpire of the Year. Whereas Mr. Coburn served 41 years as an umpire in baseball, as well as being the founder of the Pitt County Umpires Association. Whereas Pitt Community College is richly blessed with the Charles Coburn Center, along with a vibrant and active committed athletic program due in part to Charles R. Coburn's efforts. Through his dedication and love for sports, Mr. Coburn leaves behind a legacy entrusted to those his life impacted. Now therefore be resolved that the Pitt County Board of Commissioners does hereby honors the life of Charles R. Coburn for his achievements as well as his contributions to Pitt County. This is adopted this 20th day of May 2013, signed by the Pitt County Board of Commissioners and signed, attested by the clerk. And if you'd like to present this to the family.
Very good. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. I know you're proud of it. Good. Thank you very much. God bless you.
All right, next is a recognition of local Boy Scouts in Pitt County who have achieved the rank of Eagle Scout. And tonight we have 5 of them. And as we call your name, if you'll come forward, please, and we will read the certificate. If you would have any family members come up, and if you like to have a picture taken, we can have that posed and do that. So the first one we have is Will Fry. If you'll come forward with his family.
Congratulations.
There's a certificate that says Certificate of Appreciation is awarded to William Fry for achieving the Eagle Scout Award. For his project, he developed 2 garden plots, put new fencing around the plots, built 2 benches and placed them in a plot, and placed 12 stepping stones from the street to the garden at the Oakmont Baptist Church. And this certificate is presented by the Pitt County Board of Commissioners, again this 20th day of May 2013, and signed by Chairman Garris. And Mr. Garris will present that. Okay, next we have Tyler Gibson. Again, a certificate of appreciation awarded to Tyler Gibson. For his project, he cleared briars and non-native growth along the front pond at the River Park North in Greenville, North Carolina. Again, another certificate executed by the chairman.
Very good. Congratulations. We're proud of you. Next, if Nathan Hand will come forward with his family. And as they come forward, we always mention that in Pitt County, the rate of young men receiving the Eagle Scout Award is probably double or triple that nationally. There's a lot of young men who are able to achieve this prestigious award. Let me read this for you first. For Mr. Hand's project, he ran a reading summer camp for needy children at Oakmont Baptist Church and gathered materials to build individual shelving and obtained books for a reading kit that they took home. So, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations. Keep up the good work. Congratulations. I know you're proud of it.
Okay, next, if Seth Tunnel will come forward. Jordan Pierce. For Mr. Pierce's project, he removed invasive exotic plants and debris around the public bathroom at the River Park North and here in Greenville, North Carolina.
Congratulations. Keep up the good work. Congratulations.
Our next to last was Seth Tunnell. I guess he's not here tonight. Mr. Tunnell? Okay. The third presentation on the agenda tonight is one that has not been done in the past, and these are hopefully future Boy Scouts who will become Eagle Scouts, like the young men we've seen come forward tonight. This is a recognition of the Scout STEM Nova program, and actually, if we can Lucy Grice, can you come forward and just give us.
Actually, Andrew Ortiz, our Cub Master.
Okay, the Cub Master, yes. If you come forward real quick, please. If you could explain maybe what the program is about.
Sure. The Boy Scouts of America started a program to help young scouts learn more about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and we refer to that as the STEM program. Scouts, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, varsity teams, venture crews can all go through the program, and at each level there are awards that can be earned. And the pack here tonight has earned Nova Awards in the areas of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Thank you. You did a better job than I could do on that. So.
Thank you.
So again, we have a certificate of appreciation for each of the young men in this pack. And as I call your name, if you'll come forward. If you have anybody with you you'd like to come up and receive this at the same time, you're welcome to do so, or just come up by yourself. So the first one is for Sheldon Morris. If you'll come forward, please. Sheldon Kishwan Morris. Is he here tonight?
He's not here.
Okay. Next we have Javeen Ashad Best.
Yeah.
Let me read the certificate. Certificate of appreciation is awarded to Javeen Ashad Best for achieving the Science Everywhere Nova Award, Tech Talk Nova Award, and Swing Nova Award, presented by the Pitt County Board of Commissioners on this 20th day of May, 2013, signed by the Chairman, Mr. Jimmy Garris. Congratulations. Next, Jamarcus Bridges. Jamarcus Lexivion Bridges, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Hello. And again, a Science Everywhere Nova Award, the Tech Talk Nova Award, and the Swing Nova Award.
Congratulations. Keep up the good work. Congratulations.
Nicholas Griggs. Nicholas Tyrell Griggs. Mr. Griggs. Again, the Science Everywhere Nova Award, the Tech Talk Nova Award, and the Swing Nova Award.
Congratulations. Keep up the good work. Congratulations.
Broderick Germain Purvis. Again, recognizing him for the Science Everywhere Nova Award, Tech Talk Nova Award, and the Swing Nova Award.
Congratulations. Keep up the good work.
Gerard Tripp. Okay. Yamari Edwards, if I'm pronouncing that first name right. Jameson Warner Gardner. Again, receiving the Science Everywhere Nova Award, Tech Talk Nova Award, and Swing Nova Award.
Congratulations. Keep up the good work.
Benjamin Dixon. Right here. Gunner Brett Michael Mollison. Again, the Science Everywhere Nova Award, Tech Talk Nova Award, and Swing Nova Award.
Congratulations.
Carl Stock. Stork. We'll correct this for you.
That's why I let him do this.
Again, received the Science Everywhere Nova Award, Tech Talk Nova Award, and Swing Nova Award.
Congratulations. Keep up the good work.
This last recognition is for Ian Meredith, if he'll come forward. And this one's a little bit different from the others that have been presented. He has earned all 4 Cub Scouts Nova Awards. Again, the Science Everywhere Nova Award, Tech Talk Nova Award, Swing Nova Award, as well as the Dr. Charles H. Towns Supernova Award. So we'd like to recognize him for that.
Very good. Congratulations, young man. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Congratulations.
Let's see.
We're gonna dismiss to go and actually have our ceremony upstairs, but I think we'd be remiss not to mention with Ray and the Pitt County United Way has funded this entire project from beginning to end. This PAC, they funded a paraprofessional to be out there, and those kids, it's been a great product, and that was because of Pitt County United Way. So I just wanted to let y'all know that's how it's going.
Thank you.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Jimmy, can I make a comment about
Yeah.
Sure.
You can't imagine what that guy has done, Charles Kirby.
Okay, thank you. Before we proceed with our public hearing, Mr. James wanted to say something, and I recognize him.
Yes, most of you don't know this, but Charles Coburn, if you knew him, you would really say we hadn't really done what we should tonight. I taught him in school for 4 years. I had him in the Boy Scouts for 7 years. And I was a scoutmaster for 25 years. I had, during that time, we're talking about 50 years ago, during that time, I had one of the largest scouts and troops in Pitt County. Kept at least 30 boys all the time. And there was nobody but me, believe it or not. So it was tough. Back in those days, we had to help them buy their uniforms. And Charles was one that you could not believe it unless you taught him and unless you had him in the Boy Scouts. And what he did, they didn't tell you, of course, he got blowed up on a boat in Vietnam on one of the rivers. And he has had it tough. Coaching for years with no money, he did it free. But he has done so many things
that you just can't really imagine as to what a person has done. And for those little kids that were here tonight, at the Boys and Girls Club, without those people helping those kids, they wouldn't have been here. Believe me, they wouldn't. And all of us are not blessed. Let me say that to you. You don't know how lucky we are. And if you had been born back in the days that I was born, you would kind of know the reason that I vote the way that I vote sometimes. Because money back then meant something. It really did. Now it seems like we want to be so free with it. But that's beside the point. But I wanted you to know that Charles Copeland is a special person. They don't make him like him anymore. And we're blessed to have had him here in Pitt County. And if you went back and wrote a story about his life, you would really be amazed as to what has taken place in his life. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much. We shall now proceed to our public hearing. We have one public hearing on a conditional use permit for Ram's Horn Solar System, and Mr. Rhodes is going to present that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you mentioned, we do have one conditional use permit request tonight, and we'll be holding a public hearing a little bit later on that particular item. This item deals with a solar energy facility, and before we get started with that, remember that this is handled through a quasi-judicial procedure, and with that, we do have to have anyone that wishes to speak on this particular item sworn in. Just some reminders, this is treated pretty much like a court case where we're here to establish facts. People that want to speak are under oath. In addition, any finding of fact, written findings of fact will be secured, and also if there is an appeal to this, it will be to Superior Court. So with that, I'll ask the clerk if she'll step forward to swear in anyone wishing to speak. I'll proceed forward with the staff report. Again, this is a conditional use permit for a solar energy farm or solar energy facility, typically known as a solar farm. This is located on Witchard Road, and it's near the intersection of Witchard Road and Ramshorn Road, and we'll show you that parcel in just a minute. Just a reminder, you may recall Heliosage LLC was here earlier about 2 months ago to talk about the need for including language in our zoning ordinance that would actually handle solar farms. That has been included. That was approved back on March 25th. We now can move forward with considering any of these types of requests that come through. So that language has been noted, and I'll go through some of the details of that in just a minute. Again, on the screen you'll see the parcel that's in question. This is at the intersection of Ramshorn Road and Witchard Road. Again, this large tract here is some 200 acres in size. A little bit more than 50 acres will actually be utilized for the solar farm itself. Again, to orient you, here's Witchard Road here. Right here is the intersection with Ramshorn Road. Martin Luther King Boulevard is right here. Fairgrounds just off to the far corner of this slide. Again, this is the parcel in question. Some of the improvements on the parcel, you can see the red line is the parcel boundary. The blue line, the blue dash line, is actually the 50-foot setback that is required per our new regulations in the zoning ordinance for any of the improvements on the site. The blue lines here indicate the blue line streams and the 50-foot buffers that are associated with those. And those are areas that typically won't be disturbed in this process. The smaller green blocks that you see around the perimeter are actually occupied dwellings. And the actual solar panels themselves will be located in these areas. And you can see kind of underlying here are the rows of panels. So that's going to be, this is total probably about 50 acres as far as the coverage. Also, some of the other facilities that will be included as part of the development are the inverters. And you may recall we have special setbacks for the inverters that are placed on site. They have to be a minimum of 150 feet from the property lines. And again, our new section of the ordinance that includes language for the solar farms is included in Section 8, quadruple D of the zoning ordinance. And some of the things that I've already mentioned, the setbacks, 50 feet from the property line, 100 feet from the residences, and 150 feet separation for the inverters. The panels themselves cannot have a height over 25 feet, and some of that language is also included in your package tonight. The ones that are shown here are right at 20 feet height. Other submittal requirements are included in your package tonight. The site plan, which we just kind of gave you an indication of some of the major components of it. The standard drawings, copies of the lease agreement have also been secured, evidence of the utility interconnection, that's included. And of course, one item that you had a concern about was the decommissioning plans and the cost estimate. That plan is actually included in your package too. As you know, what is to be constructed on site will be, in our eyes, a structure, so in turn, there needs to be inspections made. All the building code requirements will be inspected to ensure everything's in compliance there. The electrical wiring also will require inspections. There's a need for fencing. There's also screening requirements, and there is also an allowance for signage on site. All that is included in the package that's been proposed for the application. As with any conditional use permit, there are several items that you need to consider as far as your action tonight. You should deny if you find that any of these items actually will, number one, endanger the public health and safety. And you've seen in the application package what the response of the applicant is. From staff's perspective, we feel like with this site not producing any harmful emissions, with the screening, buffering, and other improvements, we believe that it will not endanger the public health or safety. Will it injure the value of the adjoining property? We believe it will not. Most of what we have in that area is agricultural and residential. We have separation requirements. We also have screening and buffering requirements, and do not feel that it will injure the adjoining property values. Is it in harmony? We believe that it is, given the type of uses that are there in close proximity, and we also have the requirements for screening and buffering, so minimal impacts there. Is it in conformity with the land use plan and other plans adopted by the commissioners? We believe that it is. So staff recommendations, as you've seen in the application package, first, we recommend a motion to acknowledge the conditional use permit is complete and complies with the zoning ordinance, and also, secondly, approval of the conditional use permit subject to those development standards in your new section of the zoning ordinance. With that, Mr. Chairman, we're ready for the public hearing.
Thank you, James. I now declare the public hearing open. Is anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this conditional use permit?
Good evening, Board, Mr. Chairman, excuse me. My name is Andrew Focal. I'm with Heliosage. We're the sole member and owner and developer of Ramshorn LLC. I have a couple slides here. I know I have a short time here, but I'll just run through a couple things. So without further ado, really quick background on Heliosage. We're a solar energy project development firm out of Charlottesville, Virginia. We've been developing solar farms similar to this since about 2007, and our management experience has over 400 megawatts of renewable energy projects in operation. we're developing projects all the way up from Vermont all the way down to Florida, and slowly kind of working our way west as well. Really quick synopsis of why we're developing projects in North Carolina. North Carolina is actually the 5th largest solar market in the United States right now, with over 150 megawatts installed and counting. And the North Carolina renewable energy job sector supports about 15,200 full-time jobs and 1,100 companies, and about $3.7 billion in annual revenue. Our conditional use permit application, Mr. Rhodes went through this, so I won't try to repeat too much here, but basically we're planning to lease the land. We have an option to lease the land for the life of the power purchase agreement contract. The electricity will be sold to Nicampa or Electric Cities, and the project will interconnect with Greenville Utilities. We're planning to use about 55 acres or less of the total 250-acre plot and comply with the Pitt County zoning ordinances, specifically Section 8 triple D or quadruple D. We have submitted a complete application, we believe, and we have all of this included in the application for your review. I'm here to answer any questions that you have on that, and we went through the site plan. The landscaping plan, again, as Mr. Rhodes already alluded to, addresses buffering and screening from adjacent properties. This is the boundary survey we submitted. The 4 statements that we believe we comply with in our responses as well. I won't go through this just due to time, but they're here if we want to go through them in detail. And again, here's another photo of a project we built in New Jersey that will look very similar to the one we're planning to propose to build here in Pitt County. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Is anyone here who would like to speak against this conditional use permit? If not, I declare the public hearing closed. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'm going to say, could I ask some questions?
Absolutely. Yes.
James.
Yes, sir.
All right, out in Kentucky, they have another system that a windmill type. What's the difference between this one and that one?
Several differences. I mean, one thing that they do have in common is that they both would produce some type of energy for sale. In this case, we're looking at solar panels. Those types of facilities you're talking about would be more like a windmill.
Right.
So that would be different regulations if you were looking at a zoning ordinance requirement, height restrictions, and some of those things versus what we're talking about here tonight.
All right, I talked to Dr. Massey pertaining to this because in those states, the community college operate, as a matter of fact, they're beginning to operate them, teaching them. And they are completely, as far as, I know they are different, and I wanted to know, more, is that a better system that you have than what they have, I guess is what I'm
Well, I think particular to Pitt County, Mr. James, what we've understood from the technicians that deal with this, the wind velocity here isn't sufficient enough year-round to actually encourage the development of those types. So maybe on the coast in North Carolina, in the Midwest certainly, in some other areas, but generally in eastern North Carolina, inland eastern North Carolina, is not sufficient wind velocity.
Well, that in that particular area is very similar to what it is here. But if you've never seen that, I rode for miles, and you could, as far as you could see was those things, and as far as you could see that way with those things, and they must be 100, 200 foot high. How high did they go? Do you know? I know they do. I've never seen nothing like it in my life. But anyway, and I wanted to know, and Mr. Chairman, I even went so far, one community college there has built one on their campus, and they used that one to generate all the power that community college uses, plus a motel, big motel there. And I don't know whether that's anything for Pitt County or North Carolina, and you might have the best system. See, I don't know. I'm sure you all are investigated because you want it to work. But I know the opportunities are going to be there, and if they got the best one, of course, I'm for them anyway. I want to see it succeed. But now I don't see, as a farmer and as a landowner, those things, I don't believe I'd want to have a subdivision right next to them, if you know what I'm talking about. I'm being honest. I'm not beating around the bush. But they say it won't affect it, so let it be. But, Mr. Chairman,
Okay,
if you
thank
want a
you.
motion, I'll make it.
Commissioner Webb wanted to have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. James, will this create any jobs?
Yes, it will.
Even temporary if it's construction work?
And Mr. Focal can speak to that. Sometimes our understanding, they hire locally here for the temporary construction, might bring in some of our electricians, for example, other tradespeople that would assist in that. But that's really up to the individual companies that bring their facilities here as to whether they hire locally or not. So there will be some jobs available. Whether they hire here is a different question.
You may have answered this last time it was here. I just don't remember the answer. How will we tax? How will the land value?
This will be,
You said they're going
again,
into
your tax
structures.
administrator is here. There will be improvements to the property, and it will be treated as such. So depending on what the value is calculated at for that property, it will be taxed accordingly.
Okay. And I had one more question, but it's escaped.
Mr. Webb, I think the last time this came up when you did the text amendment, we were telling the board, the attorney and myself, that there's an 80% tax exclusion for the value of the solar panels that are put on the property. So we only really get 20% of the assessed value of that improvement.
Okay, thank you. And the last thing was, will this help bring down energy costs in Pitt County and in this region?
Not that I'm aware of.
Or will it
Mr.
be
Focal
harvested
might-
and sold to the electric cities?
I can't speak to that.
Sure, thank you.
Okay,
That's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Ward.
Mr. McClung, I'm sorry, I was going to make a motion. May I
You
do
may,
that?
absolutely.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we acknowledge that the application meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance and that we approve the conditional use permit.
Second the motion.
Have a motion and a second. Commissioner Colson, I believe you had some questions.
On here, it says about the screening. The entire perimeter of the facility shall be screened by the adjoining properties by a buffer yard. What's a buffer yard? It says that the requirements are in section 10H, but that's not in the packet. So I don't know whether it's in compliance or not.
It is based on the landscaping plan, which is included in your package. There's a 10-foot landscape buffer, and per
What does that mean?
It means that there's certain requirements every 100 feet of certain density of bushes and/or trees that are required there.
Is there
What
any
they're
vertical
proposing-
rise to it?
Excuse me?
Is there any vertical rise to it, or is it down at just on the ground without?
This particular type, they're recommending, or they're putting in Stevens holly, which will get a significant height to block off these types of facilities.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Garland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do know that going green is more cleaner and safer now than what we're currently using. But the comparable savings that I'm concerned about the average household. You know, these individuals that's out there, what would be the comparable savings, if any, doing this? Could you? Yes, sir.
So if I understand your question, you're asking about the cost of the electricity we're generating
That's
compared to the cost of electricity
That's
that
right.
the average household is paying?
That's right.
Okay, so the structure that we have with Electric Cities or Nicampa is we're selling to them at their avoided cost rate. So it's basically the same exact cost of electricity as it would for them to produce more electricity buying from Progress Energy through coal or natural gas or any other form. So there's essentially no savings. It's a wash from that perspective. What you do get is you get clean electricity, no emissions, local generation, local jobs, and so it's a little bit of a different conversation.
Thank you very much. Thank
Okay,
you.
any further questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. Let's vote. Thank you, Mr. Rose. The next item on our agenda is our public addresses to the board, and I believe we have two people that signed up. The first one is Ms. Nancy Coble. Will you please come forward, give your name and your address, please?
My name is Nancy Carville. I reside in Greenville, and my address is on file. And Mr. Chairman and board members, I'm here to address the upcoming vacancy on the ABC board. On June 22nd of this year, ABC Board Chairman Henry Smith's second term will expire. I have been attending the ABC board meetings on a regular basis since the middle of last year, and have come to the conclusion that transparency and accountability is not Chairman Smith's strong suit. This is an important appointment and one that I hope you give careful consideration to. This agency is not only a vital source of income for this county, but it is also responsible for the education of alcohol consumption and its ramifications. The ABC closed session minutes dated September 17, 2012 states that inquiries were made of Commissioner Glenn Webb as to whether the county commissioners had any objections to the purchase and the swapping and whatever has been going on. And he indicated that the county commissioners did not care whether they made what they did as long as it did not adversely affect their ability to continue to receive the same amount of money or more money from us, so on and so forth. Allow me to remind you that you're ultimately responsible for the choices that individuals you appoint to the ABC board make. You cannot wash your hands of their actions. On January of this year, you added an addendum to the application to serve on the ABC board, but only one applicant has filled the addendum. Should not all applicants who want to serve on this board have to fill out this addendum? You're going to have to do better than this if you are serious about appointing the best person to serve on the ABC board. These appointments cannot continue to go to friends and political allies. Again, let me remind you that you cannot overlook your responsibility and moral obligations to see that more of the ABC revenues go to educate young people on the ramifications of alcohol consumption and abuse. This education should start in the 8th grade, not during the freshman year in college. The East Carolina has an excellent program the freshman year, but again, not every young person goes to college, and they are all exposed to alcohol at a very early age. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coble. I think we have one other person that signed up, Rita Jackson Gilbert.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Rita Jackson Gilbert. My address is 323 Tills Estates Road, Greenville. I'm a veteran teacher of Pitt County Schools and just as importantly, a citizen of Pitt County, located north of the river. We have recently had to endure a road closing due to a bridge repair or replacement, which will be from May to September of this year. And while I realize these types of maintenances must occur, it concerns me that the citizens north of the river were not given the same respect or notice as other areas of Pitt County. I'm speaking about the informational marquee that is set up by the North Carolina Division of Transportation. I work in Winterville. I teach in Winterville, southern Pitt County. And as we speak, a notice has been erected informing the citizens of the closure of Davenport Farm Road. They have time to prepare an alternate route, while we north of the river did not have that opportunity. I need to know what we citizens north of the river need to do to gain balance on matters such as these, as we pay taxes also. I'm a charter member of the Association for Taking Actions in Our Community, and we'd be glad to attend any meeting, serve on any committee, or anything to help bridge the gap of equality. Again, my question is there an application, a procedure, or a notice that needs to be completed to gain these types of services? Thank you for your time, and I look forward to working with the commissioners assigned to north of the river.
Thank you. I believe that's a DOT issue.
Correct. It's not a county, counties do not maintain or change bridges out. But we can point you to the direction of the district office of who to contact.
I'm gonna get her name and telephone.
And it might be smart to do.
Yes,
I'm really not supposed to say anything I want unless you want. I just want to ask.
that's okay.
I'm from that area. I go there every day just about. What bridge are you talking about? Because I want to know.
The little bridge on Old River Road.
Well, I was on the Old River Road as a matter of fact, I rode that road today. Well, you're talking about the one up here close to Greenwood, aren't you?
No, sir, the little bridge in the curve. We have to go all around Barrett's Construction.
And to come out
Yes, sir.
there. Well, of course, we I say treat us like you do everybody else, but that is DOT, and that's what we got to, and I appreciate you coming here, and that was new to me, though, because I read
Yes,
it.
we do appreciate you coming, and Commissioner McLaughlin, I believe she needs to contact Neil Lassiter with DOT, and I believe he could give her some direction. Okay, let's proceed along with our next item, and we have items for report. The first item is from our manager, Mr. Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. A few items to review with you. The next meeting dates in the month of June will be the regular meeting on June the 3rd. You'll have your public hearing on Tuesday, June the 11th at 7 p.m. for the operating budget for next year for fiscal year 13-14. Then your regular meeting then the third Monday on June the 17th at 6 p.m. I want to remind you that next week on Wednesday, May the 22nd, is County Assembly Day in Raleigh. I would encourage any commissioners who have not signed up to consider attending. Item C is to remind you about the Community Leadership Gathering at the Greenville Hilton on June the 4th at 5:30. Item D, I think I announced this last time, but just to remind you that the Animal Control Services Animal Shelter Board is holding public forums in the month of June on the 5th, the 11th, and the 20th at the locations and times identified on the agenda. Item E is a misprint on the month that should say May 30th, 2013 at 11 a.m. Solid Waste and Recycling will have a ceremony and luncheon to recognize their award of being ranked or considered number one in the state for recycling. Item F, this is obviously an item that's already public, but wanted to put in the minutes so we can put some closure on the closed session that came out of this item dealing with the ASMA North America, Greenville, North Carolina expansion, expansion that will result in 200 jobs, roughly over $90 million of investment in the plant, and that was referred to commonly as Project Speed prior to being publicly announced. Item G are the...
Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir.
Let me interrupt for just 1 minute. I would like to take the liberty to share with the public a letter that I received from Nexon Pruitt, and I think each of you got a copy of this in your Friday packet, but I think it's worth reading part of it so that it will be in our record and the public will hear it. This letter, Nexon Pruitt, that is the consulting group that represented Project Speed, or we can say ASMO now. So they did not represent us, they represented ASMO. And let me just read some excerpts from this letter because I think it's worth reading. Several of the company's existing facilities were considered for this project, and it was highly competitive. So this was a very competitive undertaking that we were involved in. The next paragraph says, I wanted you and your fellow commissioners to know that your economic development team led by Wanda Uhas did an outstanding job, and outstanding is underlined, of representing your county in this project. Quite frankly, I was very impressed with their professionalism and their polite persistence. We work with projects and economic development organizations all over our state and the country. I can tell you that the handling of this project by Mrs. Uhas and her team and the very professional way you and your commissioners handled yourself has put Pitt County at the top of the list of desirable locations in the minds of my partners and me. Good job. Next paragraph, he says, one might assume that I send this type of letter at the conclusion of every project. I do not. This letter is sent because it was well deserved, and I think that is something that we as a board, as a county, as a development commission can be very proud of, and we want to continue to present that kind of image of Pitt County. Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Sure. A few other items. Item G, boards for which the county is currently advertising. Listed on the second page of the agenda, the EMS System Plan Oversight Committee, the Pitt County Child Fatality Prevention Team, the Greenville Board of Adjustment, the Dayton Planning Board, the Pitt County Social Services Board, and the Pitt County Board of Health.
I received 2 emails this week about people that said, I see, and they were members of the Citizens Academy, and that they would like to be considered, and I emailed them back, and I said, I hope you have an application and whatever. I would like, and neither one of them did, but they said they would get one in as soon as they could. Our citizens have to go online, get an application, complete it, and state the different boards. They don't have to just choose one that they might be interested in, and I just wanted to say that one more time. I think we've said it in the past, but when that happened this week, it made me think about that. So if you're interested in serving on one of our boards, please get your application in, and it can be done online. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
That brings up a quick question, but where are we at with making that easy? Where it's automatically on the front page of the county website, click, takes you to everything you need.
We're working on that with MIS. It's in place now?
It's done.
Okay, it's done.
I should have checked it today. I've been checking here and there. Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Had just a few other things to announce to the board. As the county receives on an annual basis the North Carolina Department of Labor Public Safety Achievement Awards, Pitt County did receive 7 of these back on April 23rd, and the Pitt County Public Health Department received a 7th consecutive year for a Certificate of Safety Achievement. The Pitt County General Government received a 7th consecutive year for the same thing. The Pitt County Sheriff's Office received their first year Silver Award for Safety Achievement. The Pitt County Department of Social Services, 2nd consecutive year Gold for Safety Achievement. The Pitt County Animal Shelter Animal Control, 2nd year Gold for Safety. The Pitt County Emergency Management, 1st year Gold for Safety. And the last one is the Pitt County Detention Center, their 2nd year Silver, again for safety. Just want to bring this to the board's attention. A couple other things real quick. The Candlewick Area Sanitary District received correspondence from them. They will be holding an election this fall as a type of municipality. They are, at this point, have no funds to pay their pro rata share of the cost of that election, and I think it's like $900, and basically is asking for any assistance the county could give them. As you recall, the county did loan them $10,000 a few years back when they were creating the sanitary district. At this point in time, I would recommend the county just add the cost of $900 to the $10,000 And at the point in time that they can pay it back, then they can pay it back. But as we charge all the municipalities for their pro rata share of the municipal elections, all the others are paying, and I guess to be fair, Candlewick would pay at the same time unless you deem to do otherwise on that.
You need a motion on that, Mr. Chairman?
No, it's not necessary unless you want to.
So you want consensus from us to pay? Okay,
To carry those costs.
okay. So we have consensus?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to show the record show that I abstain from that.
Okay. But we have consensus. Go.
Okay, thank you. Another item the sheriff and I have been working on is a communication workload analysis. This is a different analysis compared to one you received in your weekly packet dealing with the 911 center and the sheriff's communication center. This workload analysis just deals strictly with the sheriff's office communications center. And for a number of years, we've been talking about the number of dispatches that his office voluntarily handles for some of the municipalities dispatching law enforcement. That is above and beyond what his office normally does, and Winterville is probably one of the larger jurisdictions that they dispatch for, as well as Bethel, Simpson, and a few others. What his dispatch analysis is showing is that the workload is the equivalent of 3.5 positions in terms of needing help in the sheriff's communication center. Last Friday, the sheriff and I met with all the affected municipalities and shared the data and information with them, and we're trying to bring them on board to let them realize that the county may need some help in the future in terms of their either taking this responsibility on within the municipality or helping the county or the sheriff's office in funding some of these costs that go above and beyond what we would, as county government, normally fund. And at this point, we did make it clear to them that we were looking for no changes in the new fiscal year beginning July 1 for 13-14, but wanted to point them in the direction that with a year's advance notice, or more than a year, that probably in 14-15, something would need to change, and either them helping participate in paying for these costs to dispatch law enforcement, that some of the municipalities in the county do that themselves and incur that cost. Right now, the county is bearing that total cost. But I wanted you to hear that because they were going to take this information back to their different municipalities and didn't want you to hear it on the street, but wanted you to hear it from me.
No, Mr. Chairman, I've been hearing reports about it. The one is much larger. Theirs has grown tremendously over the last years. Am I not correct?
They're the equivalent of probably 2 full-time equivalent positions of the 3.5.
And that's where
2 plus.
Yeah, and they went away from us on the, you know what I'm talking
Right.
about.
2 other items real quick. The week of April 19th, beginning yesterday, is National EMS Week. I've been asked to bring that to the public's attention and to yours. And one other item real quick that was added to the agenda, the Pitt County Parks and Recreation Master Plan, there's an opportunity to use some community transformation grant funds to hopefully update that. There's an application process right now to apply for those funds. As we hear about those more, we'll bring it back to you. With that, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. The next item for report is a report from our Pitt Greenville Airport, and Mr. Jerry Vickers is here to present that.
Well, my name is not Jerry Vickers. I'll be glad to take his salary.
Hey, Jerry, he's not as good looking as Jerry Vickers,
That's
is he?
right. He's much older. Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners, thank you for your time. Before I begin with my report, one question we always are asked is when will we have another airline carrier flying in and out of PVG? As Mr. James can attest, that we have always discussed this at every meeting, and constantly we're asking that question. Through a consulting group, we've identified the route that we need to fly to. We've also paid a consulting firm that puts us one-on-one with another airline at their meetings. Airlines at this time are not in expansion mode, but they know who we are, and we are on their radar. Now I will report on the update and changes to the Airport Authority procedures. Then Jerry, our Executive Director, will go into more details concerning the airport. We changed our monthly meeting. We changed to a monthly meeting rather than a bi-monthly meeting for quicker response time and developing changes to our operations. We have had community meetings to facilitate better communications regarding airport capital improvements and activities with citizens. We actually have another meeting tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Members of the Greenville City Council and Pitt County Commissioners have been invited to attend our open meetings. We responded to customer complaints regarding the deplaning and luggage issues by involving U.S. Airways with regard to the Dash 8s. Now, the Dash 8s are the prop planes, the regional jets are the jets. We did lose some of our jets due to U.S. Air's mergers. They needed more jets for the longer gate departures up north. We petitioned to the FAA with a new safety program so the Dash 8s could unload directly into the old luggage terminal instead of having to walk up the new terminal, then walk back down to the luggage claim. And we were successful in doing that. We began a relationship with U.S. Airways leadership by inviting them to our authority meetings, and they did attend, which is the first time that has ever happened. We've given closer evaluation of financial health of the airport. We developed a 5-year capital funding plan for future equipment needs. That includes like mowers, rolling equipment, air conditioning, roof replacements. This has never been done in the past. The authority has authorized a master study plan of the airport to give it direction for over the next 25 years. And it is an aggressive plan. Jerry will show you that in a minute. We currently are implementing a generous buyout plan for the adjacent property with FAA approval money. The FAA will replace that. We are funding that money to jumpstart it. We purchased land for future geographical needs. PGV funded that money, and the FAA did repay us for that money. One of our consultants said that most small airports are not protecting their borders, and we're constantly looking at new ways to protect our borders. First time we've ever had a balanced budget, and Jerry's been has had to work on that real hard. We did front a new T hangar this year at the tune of about $450,000. In that, we'll get $27,000 in rent back from it as 10 T hangars. The board wanted the airport to repay that money that we fronted. So the $27,000 is going to go back to the capital fund, and they were not allowed to use that money in general expenses. So we're always going to have that fund that we can go back into, and we won't be spending it. Now, obviously, if we don't make any money, then that's another matter. We'll have to take that back out, but at least it shows that we're putting that money back into the general fund. We've updated and implemented a new personnel policy, process of standardizing contracts for leases and rentals, which were not done for many years, and that process has probably already been done. We've established a yearly process for evaluation of the executive director, implemented an annual review for the executive director's contract, established a yearly self-evaluation of the airport authority itself, so we evaluate ourselves. Then the chairman reviews and signs off the executive officer's work and vacation time. One good thing, ECU, which has been flying out of Kinston, they recently committed to fly in and out of Greenville next year, which is good, and I say committed. You know how that is. They could change their mind. And one good thing, we had the basketball team when they won the conference, not the conference title, the tournament. They called the airport, and they were flying back in at 4 a.m., and Jerry and his staff was able to respond and open the airport, and we actually had several hundred people that came in at 4 a.m., so we gave the university at least something to show what we could do when the football team goes in. And of course, I don't know if I told you I'm Donald Taylor and I'm the chairman, not Jerry Vickers. Is there any questions?
Keep up the good work.
Yes.
I talk with Jerry quite often, and how is this the buyout plan from the homeowners association? How is that coming now? And as to how far are we from the actual implementation of that?
Well, we have already closed on one house, and we have approximately 11, Jerry? 16 properties that we're working with the owners right now. And all of that is going along pretty well. The FAA, of course, is very slow in responding to something like that as far as money. So again, the airport has jump-started that, and we're using some of our own money to go ahead and facilitate the buyout, and that's to the right of the runway. We have some other areas that have to be addressed to the up left, and that's what the meeting is tomorrow. But Jerry can give you the particulars on that, but that's coming along pretty smoothly. We hope the construction in 14? Beginning maybe in 14 of the new runway expansion. And of course, everybody needs to realize we're not doing this because we want to. When you bring in the Dash 8s, you have new safety regulations, and just like with seat belts, it's a law in there, it used not to be. We have to abide by what the FAA says, and they've mandated new safety zones and also approach zones coming in from the north of that runway on R20.
Commissioner James, did you want to say something?
Yes, I want to say that you people here can be proud of your board, of Donna, of Jerry. Jimmy, you on that board, and years in the past for you, but they are doing a wonderful job. They really are. When I tell you that somebody's doing a good job, they are doing it. And everyone who follows me, you're going to see that it's a wonderful board to work with now. Donna is completely different than in the past, and Jerry, it's all above board, and that's what, of course, people like me like to see, and it's wonderful, I think, for what they're doing. And what's so good about it, when I came on this board, Donna, you probably do, but when I came on the board, they were coming here continuously and wanted the county commissioners to subsidize the airport. And, that was one of the bad things that we didn't want to do. But you just look at that airport now. They can almost subsidize Pitt County.
I wouldn't go that so.
I don't know nothing, but they are.
Well, if that is the case, maybe we need to pursue that.
They are doing a wonderful job. Now, what we need to do is to support them, encourage them to go on the route in which they are doing. And the key to it all, you have a good board, and they're going to look out for you in the future. I really believe that.
Very good. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you,
James.
And I will say that coming behind me, I'm a city appointee. John Banks, who you guys appointed, he kind of thinks like I do.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Jerry might not like that.
He is.
He's like there's tough when there's two of them. Chairman Garris, Commissioners, we're pleased to be here this afternoon, give you a little more, flesh out a little more detail than what Donald started with. The outline for the presentation, I'll talk briefly about our organization, a few fast facts in case you're on airport jeopardy some evening. I'll talk a little bit about commercial air service and close with an overview of our capital improvement projects. I always like to show our organizational chart because really the chart is bigger than we are. Most of those blocks have one or two people in them. But the bottom line is we have 13 full-time and 11 part-time employees, which with the way we work our employees, that's about 17 to 18 full-time equivalents. And if you think about the airport being open 365 days a year, nearly 24 hours a day, that staff is pretty lean. We're not mean, but we're pretty lean. Some fast facts, the airport property comprises about 1,000 acres. We have 2 runways. I'll show you a map in a minute. You're going to say, well, there's 3, but we've actually closed one of our runways because it was small, it was very rarely used, and had deteriorated to the point where it was not economical to repair it. We are capable of handling narrow-body commercial jets such as those you see in the lower left-hand corner. We do a number of charters, the football charters, as Donald has mentioned, the inbound teams playing ECU have flown in for a number of years. We were delighted to have the opportunity for the 514 Military Police Company arrive back from Afghanistan on Saturday. We had a couple of hundred people there, and again, it's a pleasure to do those operations. This chart is one I put out that kind of answers the question, why does our community have an airport? Not every community has one, of course, but the things, the role that we play in is an economic development, because any business or organization looking at moving to our area, the quality of your airport is in that top 10 list of things they want to look at. Of course, we provide a number of different kinds of transportation access for business travelers, for leisure, and some people overlook it, but eCare, I guess now Vidant Medical Transport, operates in and out of the airport as well. We play a role in tourism to the extent that people who come in to visit our community who are too far away to drive come in and visit. And I also think there's a quality of life component to the air service we provide, because as you think about the people we have working here, and I'm a prime example of that, my family, I'm not originally from here. So good air transportation provides people like that an opportunity to reach out, touch their families, and stay connected. The data you see on display is an economic impact analysis that was done by the State Division of Aviation, State Department of Commerce, working with North Carolina State University. As you see there, they calculate the number of direct, indirect, and induced jobs, economic contribution, and payroll. And the bottom line is the airport generates about $98 million in economic impact to the community each year. And I would say that that's a pretty good bargain for our taxpayers. We're financially self-supporting. We don't take tax dollars, and we're generating about $98 million of activity. That's a pretty good bargain. Turning to our commercial air service, as you know, we have one airline, U.S. Airways Express, providing 5 flights a day to and from Charlotte. As Donald mentioned, we've been cut back on our jets a bit. We were up to 4 jets, 1 turboprop, and U.S. Airways pulled a number of jets from airports in eastern North Carolina and up and down the seaboard. So now we have 2 jets and 3 turboprops, and of course are constantly working to change that ratio back in favor of the jets. Looking at our air passenger traffic trends going back to 2006, we note that we set an all-time record in 2010, and over the last 2 years, our traffic has been relatively flat. And with the economic situation that we've been in over the last few years and high prices of jet fuel, staying even has been pretty good for us. In our commercial air service, the prime goal, of course, is to expand and enhance our level of service. Looking at U.S. Airways, what we want to do with them is increase the number of flights or flight frequency. Again, increase the ratio of jets to turboprops. Also, we're going to continue our efforts, as Donald mentioned in his remarks, to try to recruit an additional airline. We've met with airlines. We have an airline, one of the best airline recruiting consultants in the business. And again, as Donald mentioned, we're on the radar. It's just not now till the economy approves a little bit. Also, all these airline mergers and acquisitions actually have reduced the number of target airlines there are for us to talk with. Looking at our capital improvement projects, of course, one of the goals of our board is to continue to modernize and upgrade our infrastructure. The majority of our capital improvement funds come from the FAA grant process. Our biggest project that we have ongoing is the runway 2-20 extension and safety area improvements. You'll notice this airport property map. Runway 2-20 is the one that runs in this direction, and we'll be focusing on this runway 20 end as we go through these slides. Commissioner McLaughlin had asked about the status of the home buyouts, and really this chart talks to that. There were 16 properties that fell within the FAA mandated noise contour zones, a 65 decibel level. So that ARC included about 16 properties. This is a totally volunteer buyout program. We have closed on 2 properties and have 12 others in various states of land acquisition, from doing appraisals to working with the residents about what relocation benefits they will receive and helping them and assisting them to find a home to move to. So that program is moving along very well. After we complete the home buyouts, what we will also be doing is looking at the this end out near 33, the end of Greenfield Boulevard out in the Oak Grove area. If you notice this large purple trapezoid, that's a runway protection zone. What the FAA requires that homes or properties in that area, we do one of two things. We offer them the opportunity to sell their homes, much like what we're doing with the others, or we can obtain what's called a navigation easement. That's simply where we buy an easement on their homes, and it gives us the approval to remove the trees that have become too tall in those areas. And that's the neighborhood meeting we'll be having tomorrow night with the residents from these areas to put out information and provide a Q&A session about this phase of the project. All told, the runway extension and safety area improvement will be about $10.2 million. The design and the permitting are underway as we speak. We're continuing with the volunteer property purchases in the noise zone. Again, the public meeting tomorrow night for the property owners that are in that next phase, with construction beginning in 2014. That is, if Congress doesn't take any more airport construction money and put air traffic controllers back in the tower, because that's where they got the money. Donald mentioned our T-hangar development. That short building in the foreground is a 12,000 square foot hangar facility, has 10 individual compartments. This is the most popular type of airplane storage that's out there. It is a magnet for airplanes. We had 10 people signed up before we ever broke ground, and one of the good things is 5 of those aircraft are not in Pitt County today. Those people will be here. We will sell them fuel, hopefully, and services, and you'll get the benefit of the additional property tax on those aircraft. We hope to start putting aircraft in this hangar in the first week of June. You'll probably be familiar with this property in front of the airport. It's the site of the old Army Reserve facility. This is obviously a satellite photo that's a little bit old. All the buildings on that property have been demolished and the area has been landscaped. What we're trying to do is work with a real estate agent to market development, private development of that tract of property. This is just one artist sketch. We've got a number of them for different types of uses. This one shows restaurant and mixed retail, but there could be a number of other uses as well. So we're trying very hard to market this property. Donald also mentioned our master plan. You know, if you don't have a plan, you don't know where you're going. So we're updating a master plan, mapping out the future development needs of the airport, looking out to the next 20-year period. We had our consultants draw up a number of different development options, from pretty mild, very conservative, to fairly aggressive, and our board elected to take the more aggressive path in terms of development. So we'll have some development there, we'll have some redevelopment in terms of older facilities, and we'll have a roadmap guiding us for the next 20 years. So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, that concludes my brief, and be happy to entertain any questions.
Very good, thank you. Anyone have any questions? Mr. Hammond?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Vickers, when the buyout is completed, what will be the length of that runway?
It will be, with the 670 feet extension, the runway will be approximately 7,000 feet.
In other words, that runway will be capable then of handling most commercial airline traffic, won't it?
As it can today. The extension is really about the opposite end of the runway. We need 1,000 feet of safety overrun. We don't have it because of the wetlands and Memorial Drive. So essentially, we're giving up some runway to declare it safety area and replacing it on the opposite end. But the extension of this runway will really not give us the capability to handle any airplane that we cannot handle today. Boeing 737s, Airbus A320. So it's really more about a safety improvement than it is an operational increase.
Any other questions, Mr. McGraw?
I just want to commend you, Jerry, for your working relationship with the citizens north of the river. You've opened and you've completely come forth and very transparent. The citizens north of the river certainly appreciate that, and I want to publicly say I thank you for your time and your effort in doing so.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any further questions?
The only comment that I have, Mr. Chairman, is the board and jury are doing everything they can to bring in another airline. But it's just like he said, it's just, and you know, the county put up, what did we put, Don, up $500,000 the city of Green?
We actually had $500,000 plus a grant from the state, and we actually had a meeting with an airline in Greenville, and they wouldn't even budge.
Yeah, I went to that meeting. We met, had the congressman and all those people. You remember that. And we haven't forgotten that, and we're hoping that we're going to still succeed, but the only thing you can do is work toward that goal.
Keep working on it.
One thing I did want to mention, Jerry was talking about the property. We are not selling any property. We can't sell it. So it would be a land lease on the property that we're going to develop because of the money we received from the FAA. So it would be a land lease if we do something.
Okay. Mr. Carlson?
Is your TSA Corps been expanded recently?
The Transportation Security Agency screeners,
Yeah.
they are well-staffed, and all of this sequestration stuff is not going to impact our staffing there.
Thank you.
Mr. Carlson?
In the interest of full disclosure, let me just admit that I made the mistake, and I know I made the mistake. But I got to the airport 1 minute late. 1 minute. I could not get on board that plane. It cost me a business transaction and again, I understand it's my fault, but is that really necessary that you can't make provisions for somebody coming in? There was another person right behind me, probably another minute or so behind me, and both of us, well, we guess we had our tails between our legs and left. Neither of us very happy. But must you be so stringent?
Well, let me address that. It's the airline's policy. In fact, it's U.S. Airways, not the local airline, to close the ticket counter 30 minutes before departure. And that's several valid reasons. They got to calculate weight and balance and file their final reports, get releases. So there has to be some time to do that. So they set the standard at a half hour prior to takeoff, the ticket counter closes. In fact, the local agents, the computer is going to lock them out from doing future reservations. The only exception are people in line. They're obviously not going to turn
I
away.
won't be late again.
But I would like to mention, because we have a number of people that do that, and I'd like this opportunity to tell publicly that folks need to be there about 45 minutes as a minimum, because the counter will close. And I apologize to you for your
You don't
bad
have to
experience.
apologize. It's my mistake. But.
Very good. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
sir.
We appreciate the
Totally
report. Next item for report is our tax collections report, and Kathy Booker is going to
Motion
present
approval,
that.
Mr.
Second.
Chairman.
That was a presentation only. We didn't need a motion.
Good evening. The April 2013 combined collection rate of 96.46 is slightly ahead of the combined rate 1 year ago of 95.80. And tax administration continues to pursue all outstanding taxes using the necessary enforcement remedies available through the North Carolina general statutes.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Booker? If not, may I have a motion that
Motion
we approve
approved.
this report? Motion, second. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, let's vote. Thank you. Our next item for report is our monthly financial report, and Mr. Holder is going to present that.
Good evening. Pleased to report our April 30th, 2013 financial report, which is included in your packet. At the end of April, revenues have been collected at a rate of 86.7% of anticipated revenues, and our expenditures have been spent at a rate of 81.9% of our budgeted expenditures. I'll remind you that April marks 83.33% of the fiscal year. So both our revenues and our expenditures for our general operating funds continue to trend in positive direction, and we do anticipate this to continue through the end of the fiscal year.
Very good. Any questions of Mr. Holder? If not, I'll have a motion to approve.
I so moved.
Second.
Okay, let's vote. Thank you, Mr. Holder. Have a motion to approve our, Mr. James?
I move, oh, I'm sorry.
Need to
Just
vote.
vote,
You
yes.
want me to vote?
Yes.
And I
And
did
now
that.
do I have a motion
I
to
move for
approve the consent
acceptance
agenda?
of the items for consent.
Second?
Okay, let's vote. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is an item for discussion, and that is our budget follow-up that we had last week. We gave our manager some direction. He has implemented that direction and will present that to us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm passing out to you a list of items as follow-up to the budget workshops. I'll let those get distributed and then go through these points on the list. In essence, we've been able to comply with your directives and identify the appropriate revenues as needed. First item deals with Pitt Community College. We did confirm that the difference in the recommendation, the initial recommendation of the manager, myself, is $222,227 versus the $175,000 number that we heard. That has been budgeted, and I'll explain in a moment how we were able to do that. Also wanted to clarify that the fund balance of PCC, their unrestricted fund balance, is only $1,053,944 versus the $4,169,148 that was pointed out in the Pitt County Schools presentation. The total number, that 4.2 million number, is their total unrestricted money, including county, state, and federal and institutional fund balance. So the real apples-to-apples comparison was really, should have been the $1,053,000 as the school system was comparing their fund balance against PCC's fund balance. Environmental health, on taking the half-time position to a full-time position, we were able to accommodate that. The health department was by actually increasing use of their restricted Medicaid dollars and shifting funds around without an impact on the general fund. Item number 3, in terms of Chamber of Commerce memberships, you'll see they're listed. There's actually 4 different chambers in Pitt County. There's the Pitt County Greenville Chamber at $1,250, Winterville at $100, Ayden $300, and Farmville at $100 for a total of $1,750, and we have been able to budget those. And you may ask, okay, how did you do the above 3 items? You'll see the note there. Keep in mind our initial revenue estimates were conservative, and our ad valorem revenue projections have been increased to meet the costs of these 3 items. So the new ad valorem revenue is now $77,889,532. A couple other notes from the budget workshops I wanted to point out to you. One is a question was brought up with the Pitt County Schools low wealth funding, and wanted to make sure, I think the comment was, wanted to make sure that we would not do anything to jeopardize their low wealth funding. You would have to cut them $750,000 in local funds in order for any of their low wealth funds to be affected. So just, I think Mr. James, you may have had asked that question. The next bullet there deals with the Sheriff's Office, their K-9 unit. There was a question as to what are these units doing today? What if they're on target to receive 3 new vehicles? The question was, well, what are they doing today? Well, basically, the K-9 deputies serve as patrol officers with dogs, in essence, and they service calls just like any other deputies, but use the dogs for searches, tracking of people, articles, narcotics, and such. And the vehicles they're currently using are scheduled to be replaced due to maintenance and mileage issues. Matter of fact, you can see listed here 2 of the 4 assigned vehicles are parked due to repair costs, and they're using spare vehicles until the new ones come online. The last bullet deals with the vehicle replacement plan. As you recall, we have in there a $615,000 loan as a 3-year loan that would fund the vehicle replacement plan, or the pool. We initially identified that would replace approximately 30 vehicles, depending upon if an average cost of $20,500 was taken into account, we could do 30 vehicles. Obviously, a sheriff's vehicle is more expensive than that due to the police package, due to the outfitting of the vehicle with the light bar, the cages inside, the striping and whatnot on the outside. At this point in time, I'm recommending that the board keep that package in the budget at $615,000. There was some question as to exactly what vehicles should be ordered for which departments, whether it's sheriff, DSS, health, and so forth. What I'm recommending is let me bring back to you at the point in time before we take out the loan bring back a list to you to review and approve without having to specifically say that one department will get X, another department will get Y, and so forth. And the last one, I just put on the very bottom of the page, the other funding considerations. I think you heard from the Sheriff's Office that there is a COPS grant application that would fund SROs, the school resource officers. They can apply for up to 6. I've put down there what the cost for 3 would be, up to 25% set aside, approximately $37,500 per year for the 3 years, and then the 4th year, you have to fund it in its entirety. The Sheriff's Office has questioned me last week and are questioning me this week. Do we apply? Do we not apply? I did hear the board, some of the sentiment on the board, that the school board should really be driving this decision as to whether these funds should be applied for or not. But I didn't want to just sit on this, and it was just bringing it to your attention. And if there's no follow-up on this tonight, I will just inform the sheriff that at this point that the county will pass on this funding opportunity. Normally, as Dr. Emery pointed out in her presentation, the school system, the practice has been to use state remediation funds to pay for the SROs. That is how they've been funded. They're not even funded by the current expense dollars that the county appropriates to the school system. That's the only, in my mind, that's the only item hanging right now in the budget, unless you tell me just to remains a school matter, and if they're choosing not to pursue it, then we just leave it on the side.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. James?
Yeah, I have several questions, starting up at the top. All right, where is this money going to come? Are you going to take it from your fund balance? Is not going to be as much, or what? That's my first question.
Well, as I was stating on the note in the middle of the page, we're conservative in our estimating of revenues, especially the ad valorem tax base. We have upped our estimation of ad valorem taxes coming in, and still have a conservative estimate. You still have a $2 million fund balance plug, of which we expect to fall back, so that's how we were able to accommodate the additional $222,000 for the community college.
All right, so the community college then gets what they
fully funded,
what they really need, so they say.
Yes,
all right, now going back to the $1,053,000 so dollars, and versus the $4,169,000. That was what we said between Pitt Community College and the Board of Education. Is that correct?
No, sir.
Or how did that work out?
The Board of Education had showed a comparison of their fund balance, which I think they began June 30th of last year at about $3.5 million, and they're showing that if they spend down, they're going to spend down a portion of it this year, and if they spend down more of it in the new year, they're going to go down to 1.2 or 1.5 million. They were trying to say that the Pitt Community College had a fund balance of 4.1 or almost $4.2 million, which was not an apples-to-apples comparison as to the unrestricted fund balance that they can use. The actual fund balance is $1,053,000, as you would compare that to Pitt County Schools fund balance.
All right, the Pitt County School balance, I get you work with them, and that fund balance at the beginning of the year, 2012, was $3 million and something, was it not?
Correct, and they've spent some this year.
And it spent approximately $2 million to bring it down to $1 million and some odd dollars.
Well, they spent it, I believe, I don't have the numbers in front of me, I can dig them out of my folder, but
yeah,
they've spent down probably $1 million this year, and they're projecting to spend down about another $900,000 plus next year to keep on the teacher assistants, and that would bring them down to the $1 million plus figure that they had stated.
All right, on your teacher's assistant, I've got a phone call pertaining to that. Are they starting it this year, or do they go back for the 3 of the 4 years that they did not receive that?
They are basically, the governor, as I understand it, the governor's budget is cutting 120 teacher assistants.
This is supplement for teachers, not teachers' assistants. These are teachers that are full-time in the Pitt County School. Approximately 3 or 4 years ago, you can probably help me out, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. They stopped giving
the supplement?
Recruiting, yes, the supplement for these beginning teachers.
They stopped that last year. Last year, in terms of the budget cuts, my understanding is there's been 1 year that the new teachers hired on that they stopped it. maybe in 2 years, but I thought last year
I
was just
don't
1 year.
believe, I think you need, maybe so, but I don't, not from the person that talked to me, it's more than that now.
Can I say one thing about the 900,000 on their fund balance? It was my understanding, because I asked the question of Mr. Cowan when he was here, is that that is to enable these teacher assistants in case the state doesn't, put them back on, to give them a year of employment, because we talked about the fact that it was a recurring expense. So
I'm not talking about the teachers.
I know you're not, but I was
Completely different.
But the question was asked about the $900,000.
Yeah.
And but I think you're right in that if it wasn't just last year, it hadn't been more than 2 years that the beginning teachers were not getting a supplement.
Did not
Right.
receive a supplement, and I
Right.
think, but you need to check, but this particular person was concerned that it happened 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm just not making these figures up. And if you go back there, and now that the teacher that gets the supplement this year, they will be getting the same, even though these teachers have taught for 3 years.
And technically, you need to keep in mind, the supplement, for the most part, is paid with state funds, not county funds. And the only case in which county funds are used to pay the supplement is with the county-funded positions, which is the far minority of the vast positions they have in the system.
Do you mean to tell me that Pitt County taxpayers are not paying a supplement to the teachers in Pitt County?
Only the positions that are funded with current expense dollars. Current expense dollars, their primary purpose is not to fund positions, but to pay for utilities, for janitorial, and for, I believe, insurance.
We don't pay the coaches and principals and all these people a supplement?
You pay, on some schools, you might have, they might be allocated a principal and assistant principal. Then they use the current expense dollars to hire a second assistant principal. Or they might use current expense in some cases to hire additional teachers. But the far majority of your current expenses are used to pay the three things I mentioned.
Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not against this. But I was always, we'll meet about this later on. But
I mean, that's really a school system issue. It's not.
I know that, but wait a minute. It's a taxpayer's issue because we're paying it. And we don't pay hundreds of thousands, but we pay millions in the budget pertaining to it. Mr. Chairman, you don't agree with me, I don't
No, I'm listening.
Right.
But these are, I agree with Scott, these are detailed questions that we should be asking the school
I
system.
was asking some of those, but I didn't get anywhere. That's the reason I'm doing it now.
I can't necessarily speak for the school system either.
No, you can't. Of course you can't. All right, the next thing, we didn't vote on the Chamber of Commerce, but I see it's in here. Why?
I was asked to, as part of the directives of the board, you didn't vote on it, but none of these things were voted on, but the general consensus of the board was to bring back these items and to include them. You will vote on this when you actually vote on the budget ordinance after the public hearing on June the 11th. So if you want something taken out, you could direct us then, or if the majority of the board wants that done now, tell us. But right now, the first three items are in the budget, proposed budget.
Right. All right, that seems... So the next thing that I asked, you have 3 dogs, canines.
Correct.
Mark Owens. But how many times are they used? How much money are we spending? That was a question that I asked.
They're used on a daily basis in patrol, and as these are actually comments that the sheriff's office provided, here in the explanation. If you'd like the sheriff to come back before the board.
No. I would think anything as important as those that you would kind of keep, a record of, are they being used? What rate of success are they being used and so forth? And, okay. So we'll have an opportunity then, and if I don't want to vote for
The public hearing will be on June 11th, and that's when we'll vote.
Right.
We haven't voted on anything yet.
All right.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to ask if we had been paying the memberships in the chambers of commerce.
No, sir. As you remember, probably a year and a half, 2 years ago,
2 years ago.
Pitt County was a Pitt County Greenville Chamber of Commerce member, and due to an issue that came up, you asked us to drop our membership. And since I've been here for 11 years, I don't believe we've been a member of the other three chambers either. But prior to this, you were a member of the Pitt Greenville.
We were a member when it was Greenville Pitt County Chamber.
It still is.
It still is we have the words backwards here. Technically, they were chartered as the Pitt-Greenville Chamber of Commerce, but they changed that to the Greenville-Pitt County Chamber of Commerce a number of years ago, but it's all one and the same. But
Well, I think we need to be sure about the status of that.
we are not a member today. If you pass the budget, and we've included this in the numbers in the budget at this point in time, so if
500 for all the old ones.
The board-
1250 for Greenville.
the board desires that, we will join the chamber again.
Well, we're gonna vote on it, so you can vote, who can vote the way you want to,
I'm
guarantee you
Okay,
that.
Mr. Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Johnson, we were a member up until the point that they had their dust up with the school board, and then it was brought to us to be removed as well.
Yeah.
And that is when we voted in a 5-4 to leave.
It was politics.
Can I say?
Exactly what it was.
Nothing but
And
politics.
I support joining all of them to show that Pitt County is open for business. It gives us a voice on all of these boards. And it gives us an in with the business community to show that we support them. I know they know that, but this is a physical support, not just a word support. When it comes to and moving on from that to the COPS grant, I don't understand, and I guess I'm a little frustrated with the initial delay and resistance in applying for these time-sensitive funds. But are we not providing an extra $1 million to the school system this year over last year's appropriation?
750,000, the 541, which is for the energy and the other things they had listed, plus the $200,000 in expansion. But 750 for that, and then you have the 750 for the Capital 1, 2, and 3 as well. There are no funds built into that they have illustrated that would pay for COPS. But again, COPS is not, they are not utilizing local funds for that. Not to say that they couldn't.
I understand, and I understand what budgets are and how they're all tight, but I think this is a minimum to be able to put SROs in our elementary schools where you have some of the most vulnerable, if not the most vulnerable, students that we have, especially when it comes to the rural schools like I represent, like Mr. James represents, where it's going to take 10 minutes to get there.
They'll all be dead by that time, so you ain't got to worry about it. You're
In
not going to say.
in the Newtown incident, the police response was under 5 minutes, and we still lost 26 people. And that was on a school with locked buzz doors where the suspect had to shoot through and did not stop shooting until the police arrived. One SRO could have changed it, and I don't want us to act like it can't happen here. I don't think the school system believes it can't happen here. I just think that we need to act quickly when we have opportunities, and this is a 3-year grant that there is time to plan for, to incur the expenses, and ultimately the school board is responsible for the safety of the students, whereas our statutory responsibility is to fund for the education, and their responsibility is to administer those funds in a way that provides a safe environment as well as a good education for the students in Pitt County. And that's my frustration with it. And I know they have to work their numbers out too, but there's timetables.
If I can say, the COPS grant application is due May 22nd, so I'm really needing to give the sheriff direction tomorrow as to whether they should pursue that or not.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all my comments.
One question on the COPS grant.
Yes.
Is that our responsibility or the Board of Education's responsibility?
My understanding is the sheriff's office has to apply for the grant funds. The Board of Education does not have to sign off on the grant. They could do a letter of support for it. But I believe, the way it's been represented to me by the sheriff's office, they have to be the applying entity because they're law enforcement.
But my point is, does the Board of Education want them to apply for this grant?
The message I have received loud and clear is no.
So
Because
that's the problem, that's the dilemma I have, Commissioner Webb. If I don't understand why the Board of Education is not pushing this, because, you know, that is their
they've told me,
responsibility.
due to Dr. Emery leaving, a new superintendent being search on the way, not knowing the funding priorities, their funding up in the air, them having to possibly do away with a number of TAs, teachers' assistants, they did not feel like, Dr. Emery had explained it from the podium that she did not feel like she could commit to that funding without going to her full board or a committee of her board, and felt like she didn't have the appropriate time to respond to the sheriff's request.
Mr. Chairman.
I believe I had Ms. Ward next.
Well, all I was going to say was that two things. One, it's been kind of mentioned, the difference in the Pitt Greenville Chamber of Commerce and these municipalities' Chamber of Commerce. When you're covering all of Pitt County, which the Pitt Greenville Chamber is, that's not new. That's always been that way. And I support that, just as Commissioner Webb said that he did, because I do think that it's kind of tied in with the economic development and our support of our municipalities when they're looking for jobs, and their chamber work. I think every one of the chambers has some sort of development commission or group or committee that works to attract jobs to their municipality. So I just see that as a support for these chambers and municipalities. The other thing is, I think the question about the SROs and us, I mean, signing off on it or whatever, I sort of feel a little bit like you do, Chairman Garris. I think that's how you're feeling. We have not been funding SROs in the past. We have signed off on grants that have not come back to get money from us 3 years later when the grant runs out, when they just needed support. So I just feel like that is not something that we need to be doing now, because I don't know then what's going to keep us from taking over all the SROs down the road. So I feel like that definitely this is the responsibility of the school system and the sheriff's department if this is going to happen.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Owens.
I think I voiced my opinion on that thing about the SROs last time, but there's some figures missing here, Scott. You talk about 37,500 for the 3 years. What are your figures when you're going to have to fund them for the fourth year? How much money is that?
Well, actually, maybe I should expound upon that in the type of detail, but the 37.5 is the 25% match for 1 year.
1 year, all right.
I think we calculated about 50 or 55,000 position for each position, so $150,000. So you're looking at $150,000 plus in the fourth year.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then after
the
the
fifth and the sixth.
excuse me.
No, I'm just asking. I'm sorry.
After the fourth year, then are you going to be in a posture you're going to want to fund them on again? You're going to have 3 extra people? Are you going to fire them or keep on funding them?
That's
my question,
Do it.
Glenn.
That's right.
No,
Okay.
maybe it was misunderstood. I do believe it's the prerogative of the school board, not this board.
Yeah.
And I understand that they have funding issues, but $150,000 is cheaper than the lawsuit we'd get hit with if there was no action taken, should there be a tragedy. And again, I'm not clairvoyant, but I do agree it is not this board's prerogative, it's the school board's prerogative. And maybe I didn't make that clear earlier as to how I feel about it.
You can't, may I continue?
Yes, you may, yes.
You can't put a value on the value of life, and I concur what you're talking about there, Glenn. But I think that that should come from the school board. Like-minded, the reason I'm still opposed for the chamber deal, I'm all favor of commerce, the advocation of that, but I still recall how the chamber got involved in politics against the school board and didn't say a damn word to them until it was done, and I can't condone that. That's the reason.
Thank you, Mr. James. I have you
Mr.
next.
Chairman,
Glenn, you're messing with somebody else's business that's been elected. The Pitt County Board of Education, what you're trying to do is to say, you're going to have them whether you want them or not. That's wrong. If you know anything about the school, and some of you evidently don't know, why do you think the resource officers are there more than anything? You think they're there for protection? You know what they're there for primarily? You don't. To behave, to control the students. Man, I was a teacher. You need those there now. Ms. Ward should know that. You got them there to protect. But they protect the students primarily from one another. Did you realize that? And that's the reason you don't have many grammar grades, because you don't have to worry about the teachers can protect them. But when that student is in high school, that poor teacher don't stand a chance when you get out there and go to fighting. So you better have somebody there that can control it. I thought most of you knew that, but evidently you don't. But you don't need to take, Mark Owens is right, you don't need to take and go to interfere with those people. They know where the money's going to be spent. You're a law enforcement officer. I know why you're a part. I hate to say it here, but I know why. So I'll hush.
Thank you. Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I simply believe at this point, prior to the hearing, that our county manager needs to engage in additional conversation with the school board or with the staff, with Mr. Cowan, really, who's the budget man. If you could engage in additional conversation.
I have done that. I've set up meetings, and I've gotten written correspondence. I have met face-to-face with Dr. Emery and Michael Cowan on this issue. At this point, I'm at a loss as to, and I think I've done, the application is due in 2 days to Washington, D.C. by the sheriff's office.
And you're saying that they don't want to do it, is that right?
Due to the time limitations of being able to take it through the appropriate channels of either the committees of the school board or the school board itself. That is as Dr. Emery stated at the podium when she made her presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Owens.
I forgot to ask Scott. Scott, about the cars replacement for the county, I believe most of those vehicles had 150, 160, 180,000 miles on them.
Yes, sir.
When you sell them at 150, 180, what do you get for them?
We normally get 1,500, between 1,000, 1,500, 2,000. As you recall, we had been using govdeals.com. We've used that as well as Greenville Auto Auction. Both venues seem to give us about the same amount, but they tend to go, still get a decent amount for them.
Last year we got 24 new ones, or last
Correct.
go around. You're projecting how many more if the needs are there? I know what you said about your budget. For this 615, how many more would that be?
Well, if you did it at 20,500 apiece, you'd get about 30. But if you're going to allow the sheriff to have 2/3 of those and pay about 28,000 plus apiece for them, then you're only talking about 25 cars rather than 30.
Well, if you're going to replace 20 or 25 cars every year, why not replace them when they get 70,000 miles on them, when you can get some value out of them, instead of going to 1,500 apiece?
I think you would, yeah, we are too far behind, that's true. But also, we need those cars to, I hate to say run them in the ground, but we really need to, if we had unlimited funds in terms of a fleet plan to fund it, I'd say that would work, but we are really behind the 8 ball in terms of our fleet. And
You're not answering my question.
I wouldn't recommend selling them at 75,000. I think they still have a lot of useful life.
Have an idea what one to bring then?
I do know the sheriff bought used highway patrol cars last year. That's part of the 12 he bought. We can look at it.
Okay.
I don't know off the top of my head.
That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. McGaughan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In reference to the Chamber of Commerce, I think that I'm hearing a lot of differences, and some of the differences certainly I concur. I think, Mr. Chairman, I would somehow ask that the Chamber of Commerce representative could meet with this board or you as an individual to sort of answer some of the questions that we've have and why this board elected to withdraw from it and sort of kind of ascertain those questions. Mr. Manager, if that could be arranged, I think that this would go a long way. Now, in reference to the SRO, I think that I see a need for those, but I would rather this be initiated by the Board of Education. I mean, I don't think that we should override that step, but from a professional working with law enforcement in probation and parole, I see a need, and I said at the last meeting, that the mere presence of law enforcement sometimes I think would deter some crimes, but I certainly feel that it should be an initiation of the Board of Education, and if they don't want to do that, I think that I would have some problems in trying to initiate it from this board. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With regard to the Chamber of Commerce, clearly, as Mr. Owens has said, clearly the Pitt Greenville Chamber of Commerce went against the decision of a lengthy discussion by the school board with regard to changing the length of terms and the number of school board members, and so they clearly went against the decision made by the school board after a lengthy discussion.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, do you have everything you need? Because what we have concluded thus far is that these items are going to be included in the budget at the public hearing on June the 11th, and if we want to take out anything or add anything to it, that is the appropriate time to make a motion and do it. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, on that last item, on the COPS grant application, I guess unless the board directs via motion or by some means to clearly communicate to me for the county to apply for these funds through the sheriff's office, we will not apply for these funds.
I think we've done that. I
Okay,
hope
all
we've
right.
done that.
I
I just
hear
want to
you
make,
clearly.
I'm one that would say no. And is that a consensus?
Okay, I don't hear a motion or.
Do we have to have a motion, or can we just?
No, I don't think.
I think
we have to have a
everybody was
motion.
on the same page of whose responsibility
Yes.
it was.
So by consensus,
Yes.
All right.
okay.
Thank you.
I
We
understand
will
what you're
now.
doing, and I was trying to help.
Okay. And again, we will have the public hearing on June the 11th. Next item on our agenda are items for decision. The first one is a request to accept a grant from the North Carolina White Goods Program. Mr. Demery will present that. You've read the extract there in your budget page, in your budget agenda on page 60.
Move approved.
I second it.
Motion to approve and seconded. Any questions? Let's vote. Thank you, Mr. Demery. We have an appointment to the Pitt County Airport Authority. You see the recommendation on page 63.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we appoint James Morris.
I have a motion to appoint James Morris. Second?
Second.
Okay, let's vote. We also have,
Should I know? Okay. Oops. Thank you.
Mr. McCall. Okay, thank you. One final item for decision, a reappointment to the Region Q Workforce Development Board. And you see the two recommendations on page 78, Dr. Dennis Massey and William Ross.
So moved.
I
Have a
second
motion,
it.
second. Let's vote. Thank you. We also have a closed session. Madam Attorney, will you take us into closed session?
Yes,
And then after you do that, we'll have a motion after we have take a break.
it has been suggested that this board go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A4 to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area served by the public body, 143-318.11A3, to consult with an attorney employed by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege, which privilege is hereby acknowledged, and also under 143-318.11A1, to prevent the disclosure of confidential information that is privileged or confidential pursuant to the law of this state or of the United States, and not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132.
Okay, very good. Let's take about a 5-minute break, let the room clear, and then we will go into our closed session. Thank you. Welcome back to our meeting. We've just completed our closed session. We have one item that we need to take care of, and that is the approval of our closed session minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I motion we approve the minutes from the March 25th closed
Second.
session as to the content only.
I have a motion and a second. Let's vote on that, please. Thank you. We shall now have commissioner comments. Commissioner Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just like to thank everybody that signed up for County Assembly Day. If you saw the legislative update today, the Senate budget cuts out the lottery fund provision that 40% would come back to counties. We're already being shorted $1.2 million this year, just like last year. $75 million this year, county for all the counties, and the new budget would cut that requirement completely out, with the Senate only funding $100 million for school construction, and you would see that go into the general fund versus being set aside for education and the namesake of the lottery itself. And so just something to keep in your mind for folks that are going to County Assembly Day to talk about that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for being willing to present the proclamation on the 22nd for Law Enforcement Memorial Day. And if tonight, if everyone, while they're saying their prayers, prays for the families in Oklahoma, as well as the reacclimation of our 514th who is returning from war in Afghanistan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner McLaughlin?
No comment.
Commissioner Johnson?
I just say that we have a full day of work on the 22nd in Raleigh, and I appreciate any of you that are going.
Thank you. Commissioner Owens?
Good night.
Commissioner Ward?
No comment. Thank you.
Commissioner Colson?
No comment.
Commissioner James?
No comment.
Mr. Hammond?
No comment.
I have a motion to adjourn.
So move second.
Let's vote. Thank you very much.
Ooh.